It's time for the Boston Chris Show.
Y'all, this is India Ramey. Thanks for tuning in to the Boston Christian.
Guys, it is Gretchen Peters week here on the podcast, and man, I was just telling Gretchen just how much of a fan I am of hers, and we've interviewed over 700 songwriters on this show, and this might be the most nervous I've ever been, to be honest.
I know you might.
I'm just so honored to chat with you and pick your brain, and you're just such a phenomenal creator, and thank you for doing this, Gretchen. Welcome to the show.
Absolutely. I'm thrilled to be here.
So, just doing some research on you, I can't believe it's been 30 years since your debut record.
Yeah, I know. I can't believe it either.
Man, where's the time going?
On one hand, it feels like every bit of 30 years, and on the other hand, it doesn't seem real.
Right.
At all.
Yeah, because I remember when it came out. I remember, I think I was introduced to you through liner notes. I'm a liner note nerd. I'm a songwriting nerd, and that's where this show was born from. But, my favorite song ever is "You Don't Even Know Who I Am." Not your favorite, not my favorite from you, but my favorite song ever is that song.
Oh, wow.
So that was when I was introduced to your name, was, Gretchen Peters liner notes on Patty's record. And ever since then I've been a fan. So it's just,
the song has been getting a lot of love lately for some reason. You never know why these things happen, but I love seeing it pop up. Like I'll see, a singer-songwriter doing a cover of it on Instagram or something like that. And I think part of the reason is Patty sang it as a duet with Chris Stapleton
Sure.
a couple of years ago, and it was I wish they would release it because it was just made such a stunning duet. But I just, for whatever reason, I love that it's kind of had another little moment.
As the songwriter to these songs, when you see them have that life, 10, 20, 30 years later, and you see, Patty doing a duet with Chris, and like there's other folks, like young artists that are covering these songs. What is that? How does that make you feel as a creator of the songs?
Well, it makes me feel, primarily, I think it makes me feel like I did my job right.
Yeah.
Because I think that a song, it's one thing for a song to like have a moment when it's released where it resonates with a lot of people and becomes a hit or whatever. But it's a whole other thing for a song to sort of be well built enough and sturdy enough to survive, years and decades and still speak to people, maybe a whole different generation of people. Yeah. That means that you tapped into something that's maybe a little more timeless. And I think that's the primary feeling that I have as well. If this is still speaking to people, then I must have done something right.
Yeah, it's the generational thing. I was waiting for that word to come from you because that's very true. It's very generational, and these songs have meaning to folks of all different ages, all different walks of life, and I can't wait to get into some of the stories behind some of my favorite songs later in the episode. But I really want to tell the story of where you came from because it's so obviously intriguing to me as a fan of yours. You were born in New York, of all places. And a lot of folks may not know this. Bronxville, like literally inner city, right?
Well, it's actually, it sounds like it's the Bronx, but it's actually in Westchester County. It's not in the Bronx.
Okay.
So Bronxville is, it's kind of like, okay, most people have seen Mad Men, right?
Yeah.
It's the suburbs of New York. It's where my father was a writer and a TV producer, and he worked at when I was little, he worked at CBS Reports, and a lot of the the fathers, the men who were at the time, worked in the city, lived in these bedroom communities. So if you saw Mad Men, it was that kind of a suburb where I
Okay.
grew up.
And I
Yeah.
mean, the story is that your parents got divorced, and that ended up having you as a kid moving out west to Colorado. And
Right.
looking at your story as a whole and looking back at it, I feel like that move obviously probably shaped your life more than any other singular event that happened to you, right?
It was, I mean, it's hard to know, but it seems like it was seismic to
Yeah.
me because I did grow up in New York is kind of a bubble.
Hmm.
It's the old New Yorker cartoon. There's New York and then there's the rest of the country kind of thing. And I think I would have obviously been drawn to music, but if I hadn't left New York, what kind of music would it, Colorado opened up, country rock and hippies, and I moved to Boulder with my mom, and I mean the music scene and the scene in general could not have been more different from where I was born. And so I think, I think musically it shaped me, and also there was a big live music scene. I mean, it was kind of rivaling Austin, really.
Wow.
So that opened up this idea that, wow, I could have a band. I could go out and play in clubs. I could, and my mom was my great enabler, and she took me when I was way, way underage. I'm talking like, 13, 12 years old,
Yeah.
out to see live bands. And so that planted that seed in my mind. So yeah, I think moving to Boulder and moving to Colorado was a seismic change for me.
So, what was kind of your introduction to music as a kid? Who or what got you involved?
I had an older, I'm the youngest of four. So I had a one older sister. My next oldest sister in particular was about 5 years older than me. And she was bringing home Bob Dylan records. And, of course, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones were everywhere. And she just kind of putting it in my ears, and I went to a camp when I was 7 years old where one of the things you could do was learn to play guitar. And this was all at the same time. And the music, I loved the Beatles. I loved rock, but I couldn't imagine making that music because
Yeah.
it's big,
Right.
When she brought home a Bob Dylan album, then I started to think, well, that's just a guitar and a singer, I can do that. So at, 7, 8 years old, I started teaching myself Bob Dylan songs and Peter, Paul and Mary songs and Janis Ian and the New York folk scene, basically. And that opened my mind to the idea that not only could you make that kind of music, but you could write songs
Yeah.
as well. Like people wrote their own songs. So folk music really was my entree. And growing up in New York, I wasn't even aware of country music. I don't
Yeah.
think it was years before I was really aware of it.
Yeah, see, I'm from Massachusetts, hence the Boston Chris, and so it's very similar to that. We had one country station, and thank God my dad, that's all he listened to was that country station, because
Yeah.
it really, my love for traditional country is born from that. I love how it's Bob Dylan, of all people, that allows you to see yourself um in that almost ability, right? Like I feel like every songwriter or artist's story has that paramount person that allows them to see themselves in their shoes. And I find it interesting that it's Bob Dylan for you. It's not
Well,
you know?
he was the first. He wasn't the only, but he was definitely the
Sure.
first. Just because, the simplicity of the way those early Dylan records were, they were just guitar and voice,
Yeah.
know. And it was really that simple for me. Because to me, like the Beatles, those records seemed like they just came down from Moses on a tablet.
Yes.
But I mean,
Yep.
they're not accessible in terms of, I can do this with
Right.
my little, nylon string guitar, But Dylan, that was accessible. That was something I felt like I could do that somehow.
Do you think because it was Dylan and folks like Janice Ian and Peter Paul and Mary, folks like that, that really salt of the earth kind of music, is that what kind of inspired you to write as well?
Well, I think the thing that I had even at like, 7 years old, which I have to laugh when I think about 7-year-old me sitting there strumming the guitar, singing like Masters of War or something, like probably not even really understanding.
Right.
But I think that the common thread there, and the thing that hooked me, was even at 7 or 8 years old, I was completely captivated by a couple things: emotional, the emotion in music, and the simplicity. Those the two primary things. I loved the simplicity of folk music, the fact that it's 3 chords and it's delivery system for a story, really.
Yeah.
And I love stories. I think I was sort of maybe kind of born a storyteller. And this, whereas rock music, lyrically and in every other way, again, going back to the Beatles, that's not linear storytelling so much.
Right.
But the songs that I was hearing, the folk songs of the time, were telling stories, and I think that's what really hooked me and made me want to do that. I'm essentially a storyteller at heart.
Before you picked up a guitar and started playing and being influenced by these artists and writers and stuff like that, what does creation look like for you at that time, before music is introduced to you?
I was doing everything. I was painting. I had an aunt who was an artist, so I emulated her. I was painting. I was dancing, singing. I mean, everything. It was really diffuse, but more about the expression
Wow.
than it was about any particular medium. And even after I started playing the guitar, I still did all those other things, and I was always a writer. I think that was the bedrock for me. I was writing poetry and short stories. I wrote my 3rd grade play. I was just a writing machine, even then.
You said your dad's a writer. Is that partly where that comes from? Is it hand me down, or is it just organic to you?
Well, I think we were very different kinds of writers. My dad was a journalist.
Right.
He wrote nonfiction. But the one thing I did get growing up as the daughter of a writer was, and this is not a small thing, was the notion that a person can be a writer.
Yeah.
I think
make a living at it, right? Like this can be a career.
I really think a lot of kids either get told or they get the idea that that's just not something you can do, And I never had that idea, because he was supporting a family of 4. By writing. So I never had the sense that I couldn't do that. But beyond that, we were very different in terms. He was really a journalist.
Yeah.
That was really, and there are elements of journalism in storytelling, but then there's the whole other side of it,
Right.
which is imagination.
Yeah, and you only get 3 minutes, right? If you want to be commercial, especially.
Yeah,
you get 3 minutes.
and 5 if you're me.
Yeah. Sometimes it's the characters have more to say, right?
Yeah.
Man, I often wonder on this show how many artists, how many songwriters we've missed out on because they didn't have that realization that it could be a living, it could be something financially worthwhile for them, or conversely, their parents are hardworking blue collar kind of folk, and perhaps they don't get that kind of support of you can do this, kind of a get a real job kind of thing that we hear. So I often wonder how much great music we've missed out on because somebody went to work instead of picking up the guitar,
Absolutely. No,
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. And I feel so lucky that I had parents that, never put any limitations on us
Yeah.
as far as what we could do.
Yeah, thank goodness for that, man. So you talked about the Boulder music scene. I don't know much about it, so I have to ask. As obviously you're coming up, you pick up a guitar, you're writing and stuff like that. What is your realization that you are surrounded by this incredible music scene? Like when does that start hitting you?
Well, like I said, my mother was my great enabler, and she started. I there were certain bands that would play locally that I would sort of latch onto and want to. I literally, there was one band I made her take me. They played every Sunday night locally, and I made her take me every Sunday night, and she ended up, her whole social circle ended up becoming the parents of the kids that were in that band, who were just a few years older than me. But when you're 12, a few years is a lot. They were high school, college age, and I was maybe 12, 13. But I would literally sit there at the table with my little Coke, and a notepad and write down chords. I was watching these guys play songs, and I was trying to figure out how to play them, and what the harmonies were and all that. So it was like, I would consider it like my prep school for music. And I was probably picking up less tangible things as well, things like how to be on stage, and how to put a set together, and all of that stuff. But I really learned through watching these bands live. And then the other thing, of course, like probably every other one of my peers, sitting in my room for hours at a time playing records and writing the lyrics down. I think one of the things that really is interesting to me as a writer, and I tell my students this, at the time, because this is how you had to do it, you drop the needle on the record. If you wanted to learn to play a song and you had nothing but your own ear, you drop the needle and you write the lyrics out, and you put the needle back because it would get ahead of you, and you'd have to go back and do it, 10 times or whatever. And I have a notebook. I still have this notebook of all the songs, the cover songs, the songs that I love, that I learned from Bob Dylan to Joni Mitchell to Leonard Cohen to, Paul Simon, whatever. And what I realized years later, decades later, is that I was completely unaware, but I was learning what song structure was. I was learning how to write the lyric out so that it made sense, so that when you looked at it, things were separated by lines. I was learning structure. I had no idea that's what I was doing. I was writing it down, but when I went to start teaching, that's when I figured out, oh my God, that's what I was learning then, is how songs are actually put together. Like what the building blocks are, what a chorus is, what a bridge is, what a verse is. So I think that was one of the sort of, like I said, it was my kind of prep school.
It's amazing stuff. So,
if Nashville was my college, that was my.
And that's where I'm going next. Let's talk about Nashville as your college. When you're coming up into prep school, as you're calling it, at some point in time, you get the desire to want to go to college. Do you remember what that was like? Because I imagine that's kind of going from hobby to real thing at that point, right? Because a lot of times music is just a hobby while you go to school or whatever is going on in your life, but then it becomes real. Like, holy crap, I might be able to do this.
Yeah,
so Nashville becomes college. What was that kind of catapulted you for that?
I will say that when I was still living in Boulder, I had a couple of bands. I played in all the bars, and I was very serious. I mean, yeah. I wouldn't have called it a hobby. I called it my career.
Right.
But
okay.
Of course, I'm sure that a lot of people, probably including my family behind my back, thank God, kind of were going, what is she talking about, career?
Yeah.
She's playing in bars, for drunks.
You're making money at that time, so that's serious stuff too, right? So.
Well, I was getting by, but you could do that. You could do that back then.
They're probably still paying the same amount too, Gretchen. Just so
probably.
you know.
But the experience, I came to the realization that nothing was gonna progress unless I decided to move to either LA, New York, or Nashville. And although I had discovered country music at that point and was crazy about it, loved it, but I knew that I was not Loretta Lynn. I mean, I'm a folkie. I sound like a folkie. That it's obvious. I think that's where my roots are. But at the time, Nancy Griffith had made a record in Nashville very recently at that time. Steve Earle was there. The O'Kanes, who I loved, were there. There were a lot of people that were kind of on the folk fringes of country. And that seemed more like a place that I could find a place for myself than LA or New York. So I moved. And I think the big, what you're referring to, the big, oh shit, this is real kind of moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Is when two things happened to me. The first weekend I was there was a big party, a big industry party. The great songwriter Harlan Howard used to have a yearly birthday bash.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yep.
And, all the songwriters would come and they would play, and it was like all day music, and you'd hear amazing things. And one of the first things I heard that weekend, which was my first weekend in town, was Don Schlitz singing The Gambler, which had been a fairly recent huge hit of his.
Yeah.
And I listened to him sing it, and I realized that I'd heard that song hundreds of times, and I'd never actually really listened to it. Mm-hmm. And it was something about the fact that it wasn't Kenny Rogers. It was Don Schlitz. It made me real, and the fact that I was there in Nashville, and I knew I was kind of there to learn, Mm-hmm. I listened to it, and I saw how incredibly skillfully it was put together, and just everything about it that worked. And I felt like I just had a huge light bulb go off. And it was also incredibly intimidating. And part of me wanted to go, I'm going back to Colorado. There's no way. And then the other part of me was saying, I can do this too. And I think, obviously that part won. But I think that's a good combination for somebody who's just in the position that I was in, to have, I had the ambition, but I also had a reality check. Like,
why do you think that voice is the one that won out?
Well, I mean, that's the X factor with anybody that tries to, create a career like this. I think it's almost that thing. I know you've heard people say this, if you can convince yourself to do anything else, do that. Don't try this, because this is hard and it'll break your heart. This kind of a career will, and they're right. I mean, they're right.
Yeah, because go home's the easy way, right? Like, just go home. You're not this good. Go home. That's the easy way out. Just do it, right?
Well, and it's not for the faint of heart, know. I mean, you mostly what you're gonna be dealing with, especially at the beginning, is rejection over and over again. So you have to have that something in you that says, I belong here, and I had that. I definitely had that. But I also had a good grip on reality and realized how much I had to learn. And I think that's a good combination, because I was willing to listen.
Yeah. Was the desire when you got to town, or even prior to then when you make the decision to get to Nashville, is the desire, I'm assuming based on what I heard you just say, that the goal is to be an artist, right?
For me, the goal was to be an artist, but here's why. I still at that point didn't really realize that writing songs and singing them and being in the studio and then going out and playing them for people wasn't all part of the same job description. Right. I mean, I grew up on singer-songwriters. I didn't see, I was dimly aware that there were what they call, sort of staff writers or cubicle writers, or, I was sort of, I knew that, but that wasn't anything to do with me. It didn't feel like I grew up thinking, I want to do all of this. I want to write the songs. I want to sing them to people. I want to learn as much as I can, you know, about being in the studio, because I hadn't had much time in the studio at that point, and that was something I knew I needed a lot of hours, you know,
Yeah.
just to figure all that out. But I wanted to do all of it. So yeah, I came with the intent of being an artist, but not because I had some sort of you know, chip on my shoulder about
Right.
it, but only because that was the only way I could see myself. Why would I write a song if I wasn't ultimately going to sing it to someone?
Well,
You know?
interesting stuff, yeah. And man, you're everything you're saying makes so much sense to me, knowing so much about you. So the couple of things I want to unpack. First thing, writing lyrics from songs that you like, that you hear. We've all done that as kids, right? I mean, people that never became a songwriter, we've done that. I'm not a songwriter, I've done that. It wasn't with a record, it was with a cassette. I had it a little bit easier than you probably. I just had to hit rewind, right?
You still had to go back.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. But it's a different relationship with music, though, when you're writing those lyrics out and it's teaching you something other than learning the words to the song. And that's what was happening for you. You're learning structure of songs, where things go, the place of things. That didn't happen for me and probably millions of others. So one of the things I do obviously know about you is you are a prolific solo writer. Most of your hits were written solo by you. I want to know if you can kind of reflect on those times writing lyrics from the record and learning structure. Do you think that was a major factor in you being such a prolific solo writer?
Oh boy, that's a that's the $64,000 question. Why do I write alone so much? Honestly, I don't think it's that so much as I think my my songwriting process starts very it's the only way I can describe it is the idea or the impetus to write a song starts as a little kind of ball of intuition. Like there's nothing verbal about it, there's nothing tangible about it, there's nothing linear about it. There's nothing that I can sit down in a room with you and say, "Hey, I got an idea." You know,
Yeah.
it starts as a feeling. It starts. I liken it sometimes to, you know, the metaphor is, you know, the reason that you get a pearl out of an oyster is because it starts with a grain of sand, which is an irritation of some kind,
Mm-hmm.
and the oyster makes this pearl eventually around the grain of sand. And that's like what songwriting feels like to me. It's kind of like there's something that's bothering me and I have to get it out. And so then I begin to write around and around and around it until I kind of see what it is. So it is really hard. It was always really hard for me to go into a room, especially when I got to Nashville, and I was encouraged to do this because everybody co-writes, you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
It was so hard, even hard to the point of painful for me to go into a room and try to bring something in that felt that I could communicate to my co-writer. And I have learned to co-write a little bit, but I have also really more importantly learned that I'm just not by nature a co-writer. I have this idea, and the other element to it that I have is, you can call me a control freak. It's totally fine.
I don't think so. I think it's just personal, right? It's a very personal process.
Yeah, I mean, I have this sense when I do have that little feeling that has no name and no words that I know where it wants to go. I couldn't elaborate on that right now, but I know that internally I know where it wants to go. And I feel like if someone else is in the room, it can get off track so fast.
Yeah.
And I hate to lose an idea that feels important to me that way. And I think that's what put me off.
So you talk about like you're attributing this to like the oyster and the pearl. Does it take that much time for you as well? Like the build up.
I take a long time. I mean,
Yeah.
there are a few exceptions. You don't even know who I am is actually a song I wrote in an afternoon, and I could probably count on one hand and take a couple fingers away the number of songs I've written in an afternoon.
Wow.
That one just poured out. But I'm not, by nature, I'm not fast. I'm very slow.
Are you a write what you know kind of person? Like it's the songs are something you experience, biographical, so to speak?
No, I think that people miss, this is something I harp on when I'm teaching. I think people misinterpret write what you know as meaning literally what you have your own
Yeah.
life experience. And I think that what whoever said write what you know meant was write what is true, what you know in your gut, and we all have an intuitive knowing inside of us. We all have we all have intuition. We all, that feeling when I got a bad feeling about this
Yeah.
thing. We have that. We all have that. And the thing we do is we ignore it most of the time. And I think good writers, really good writers, get and stay in tune with that thing, which is, I call it like the truth bone. Does it hit you in the truth bone? And I think that's what write what you know really
It's so
means.
interesting. So essentially, you don't have to live the story for the story to be good.
I mean, I've written about circus performers and murderers, and
Yeah.
I haven't done any of that.
Yeah.
I grew up in Westchester County, New York.
I love it.
I haven't done any of that, but my characters, I will, if you're going to write character story songs like I do a lot, you do have to write what you know is true of them. And in order to do that, you have to spend some time with them.
Yeah.
And I think what as you get older, as we all get older, we know more about how people are. We know more about human nature. What do you know about human nature if you're writing about this character who's been a waitress for 25 years, and she's burned out, and she's middle-aged, and she's tired, and what do you know about that? I've never waited on one table, Chris, not
Yeah.
one, but I have a lot of waitress songs. There's something in that character
Yeah.
that has been through some stuff that I understand somehow. I understand her, and I can write about her truthfully, and she has she makes the listener believe for 3 to 5 minutes that she's a real person.
Yeah.
And that's really write what you know.
So yeah, I wanted to talk about solo writing with you for that reason, because it's a very personal thing, but at the same time, obviously Nashville is known for co-writing, right? And very much so. On the other side of the coin here, though, the opposite of solo writing is obviously co-writing, and you, I think maybe your most common co-writer was Bryan Adams, and
Yeah.
so I mean, I think you've written the most songs with another person with Bryan.
Oh, by far.
Yeah, talk about the relationship for somebody who is so personal and so, close to the chest kind of writer. What does it take for you to open up to a person and create a relationship like you've had with Bryan?
Well, Bryan and I, it's the most unlikely, at first glance, I guess, was probably the most unlikely pairing. Like, what?
Yeah.
But when we met, he reached out to me, and he just said he's very persistent, and of course incredibly charming, and he's just like, he heard Independence Day, and he just said, I just want to meet the person that wrote that. Will you just come up to Vancouver, and can we just hang out for a couple of days, and maybe we'll write something, but it's such an amazing song. I want to meet the person that wrote that. I'm like, okay, how can I say no to that? I mean, it was lovely that he did that he went out of his way to find me and do that. So we sat down together, and immediately, I don't know, established our relationship. Sort of, we fell into this friendly kind of brother sister kind of dynamic.
Yeah.
I felt very comfortable with him. We grew up very similarly, single moms raising us, moving west. He moved from, Eastern Canada to Western Canada. I moved out to Colorado. grew up on a lot of the same music. That was, I think, the big surprise to me was we had so much in common in our teenage years, what we listened to. So we talked about music, endlessly, and who we loved, and what songs we loved. And and the first songs that we wrote were not amazing, and I take most of the responsibility for that because I was such an awkward co-writer.
Co-writer, yeah.
But he, for some reason, stuck with me, and he just persisted, and we ended up writing some songs that I love.
Incredible songs, yes.
And I think of my role with him very differently. I think that one of the things that writing with him was so good for me, one of the reasons it was so good for me, is it stretched me in terms of my craft, my ability to fill the need of the moment. Like, is this a song that just needs a little bit more quirky lyric somewhere? Does it need just a little bit more of individuality here, or this line, or I began to see where I could fill a need and contribute that way, and it was fun.
So you're learning from this relationship how to be a better solo writer too, aren't you?
I think so, and I think I was learning. I've learned so much from him. I mean, so many things, like sitting so many hours sitting next to him in the studio watching. He's one of the great singers we have.
Iconic singer, yes.
And watching him in the studio, I learned a lot about singing. It's been such a great experience. And of course, he's one of my lifelong buds. He's one of my best friends. He sang at my wedding, and the whole relationship has been a complete surprise and wonderful. But I do look at it like my role there is its own thing. When I'm sitting down by myself to write a song, it's a whole other thing. But with Bryan, I'm looking for ways where I can be of service to the song. And if it means that it's just lyric, then I'm happy to do that.
I'm going to keep it real. Knowing how prolific of a solo writer you were, and I started reading about you and looking through your catalog and seeing how few co-writes you really truly have. And then I saw Bryan's name popping up so much, I was like, what kind of relationship does it take to allow that, being such a solo writer and known so much as a solo writer, and seeing Bryan Adams. I was like, this is something unique here. So I had to ask you. I had never seen you talk about that in another interview. So thank you for talking about that.
Absolutely.
All right. So one thing you may not know yet, but I'm going to tell you, I'm a huge champion of women in the industry. And I know there's a lot of folks out there that are not, especially back in the day. I feel like it has gotten better here, nowadays. And thank you, Ella Langley, for making that happen even quicker. But back in the day, I imagine when you're coming up in the 90s and the early aughts and all that, you have all of these female-centric songs. You're a female songwriter in a male-dominated industry. Talk a little bit about the challenges of getting your songs heard in this industry. Songs like Independence Day, You Don't Know Who I Am, these female-centric characters. Because I imagine there was a little bit of pushback from that, right?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, first of all, country radio played around the time when I was having the most of my commercial success. They played one, maybe two women an hour on the radio.
Right.
So there's that. Another thing this is just to illustrate what a strange world it was / is. Well into my publishing deal at Sony Music, where I was there for about 20 years, I used to sing all my own demos, because I was trying to get studio hours. I was just trying to get as much time in the studio as I could, and I was perfectly capable.
Yeah, you're a sponge. Yeah, you're just wanting to learn everything. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was capable of playing my own rhythm guitar and singing my own demos, so I would do my own demos. And well into my publishing deal, one of the song pluggers at Sony said, um, male artists will not record a song that when they hear a demo that's sung by a female. Female artists record songs all the time that are sung by men.
Hmm.
The demo is sung by a man, and I never knew that. I said, you're kidding me. He said, no, your voice, it's too feminine. No, guys, they can't imagine themselves singing that song when they hear you sing it. And I just thought, oh my God, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Hmm.
But it's true. It was true. And it was the reason why, part of the reason why, not the whole reason why, but it was part of the reason why the vast majority of songs that I had recorded were recorded by female artists.
Hmm.
The other reason is because, like you said, I was writing songs like Independence Day, which I think would have been amazing if a man had sung it, but it was women that wanted to say that. It was female artists. It was people like Martina that wanted to say that. And even though getting a foot in at country radio for a female artist was hard, and getting that one slot an hour was hard, I feel like those songs somehow, maybe because of their scarcity, made a bigger impact. Like if you talk to kids today that weren't even around in the 90s, who love 90s country, ask them what songs they like. It's going to be the Dixie Chicks and Martina, Trisha, and Patty, all the people that were, and Faith Hill, all the people that were cutting my songs. Somehow that's what is still cutting through. And I think it's because these incredible women artists, like the ones I've just named, they had to work 3 times as hard and have 3 times as good songs.
Indeed.
And
Yeah.
they had to really, really go above and beyond artistically, and they did. And those records just stand up.
Yeah, I hadn't
Absolutely.
thought of it as in a scarcity sense. You're right. When there's only 1 or 2 slots an hour for a female artist to be on the radio, then that DJ or whoever's in charge of putting together the format for that night is choosing 1 or 2 females an hour. So
And then
you have to stand out.
And then there's also the sort of psychological component of it for female artists at the time, which is, look, if they're not going to, the odds are bad enough, they're not going to put every single I put out on the radio. I might as well take some chances.
Sure.
And the female artists took big, I mean, Independence Day for Martina McBride was a huge risk.
Absolutely.
She took such a huge risk. And I found as I was, getting more hours and years in the music business, and, going to the CMAs and seeing what songs really, cut through, the really risky ones, like Independence Day, even though they were a harder sell to country radio, those were the ones that ended up doing things like winning awards and just cutting through the noise.
Yeah.
So I think I don't know. I think all of that played a part in making those songs still memorable today and still being talked about and played today, which, thank goodness.
Yeah. And TikTok, TikTok sounds, things like that. That's a big formula in that nowadays too. And I know as a songwriter that probably helps you a lot. When somebody's making your sound go viral now. It's so weird talking about things like that. Your sound goes viral, like.
Yeah. It's a brave new world, that's for sure.
Man, so we're 45 minutes in, and I haven't even talked about Independence Day yet. So I'm not letting you out of here without talking about Independence Day. I have a few questions I want to ask you about this. And so you talked about the formation of a song being very similar to sand and an oyster. So how did Independence Day become a pearl?
It was a big grain of sand. I had this the beginnings of the chorus, the let freedom ring, let the white doves sing, that, the very beginnings of the chorus. And of course, if you just look at that chorus, it's very hard to figure out, what does that mean? What does that signify? What's going on here? But it felt, again, it was this feeling that felt big and important, like something cataclysmic happened in this story. And I don't know what it is, but you don't come out with let freedom ring without somebody going through some stuff.
Yeah.
Something has happened here. It's almost like you're solving a mystery, really, at that point. And one of the luxuries of writing solo is that nobody's looking at you saying, can we finish this song and go to lunch? That you have the time to let things just sort of stew for a while and gestate and whatever. And I spent a lot of time with that chorus going, what happened here? What happened here? And slowly the story, I began to sort of imagine the story around it, and the mother and the daughter, centering around the mother and the daughter. And I knew early on that I wanted to tell the song from the point of view of the daughter, because for a lot of reasons, but I don't think I realized this at the time, but that little girl in that song was 8 years old, which is the exact age that I was when my parents split up and my world blew up. Mm-hmm. So I think it was my emotional way in to empathize with her. And also because I love telling stories from the point of view of children, because children do not editorialize. They just report. They just tell you what happened.
Like it is. That's right.
They just tell you what happened, and you are left to decide how you feel about that. Mm-hmm. And I love that point of view. So I think that started working, the idea, I want to tell this from the child's point of view, but what's really going on is between the mother and the father. And I slowly, talk about putting the layers on the grain of sand. I started adding the layers in of the story. At one point I had two children, like the little girl had an older sister like I did. And I scratched that. No, that's not, it has to be just her telling the story of what happened to her mom. And eventually, the story it manifested and became what it was. And I had everything but the ending, and I was scared about the ending. I think I knew what the ending was, but I was scared because it was dark, and it was, there wasn't a way to tie a nice bow around it.
No, there really isn't.
And I felt like, that you mentioned the whole write what you know thing. Something in me knew the way that this story ended, and I wasn't going to let myself pull my punches in order to make it safer or more palatable or, easier. That's not to say, and I've been accused of this, that I was promoting the idea of murdering your abusive husband.
Right.
I was telling a story. This happened to this little girl and her mom. This happened. This is one story in millions of stories. But I'm going to tell this one because I think that it'll make you feel something about this. And
this is a strong question, Gretchen, but do you realize how many lives you've saved with this song?
Well, it's hard to think about that, but I don't. I guess my answer is I do not take that lightly. When somebody says, I got out because of your song, I think that's one of the magic things. That is right there, Chris, is the reason that I believe songs are so much more than entertainment.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, they are part of our emotional makeup. They're part of our history. They're part of us, and art can change the world. I mean, it really. But anyway, so I didn't, I did, thank goodness, the thing that I was afraid to do, and I ended it the way it ended. And then I thought, well, nobody's ever going to record this but me. I'll do it, but nobody else will, And I'll be damned, Martina was the first artist that heard it, and she just
Wow.
knew that she knew she wanted to say that. She wanted it, and she was absolutely the right. I mean, I can't imagine
Yeah.
it being in anyone else's voice.
Well, I want to say a couple of things here. You talked about Don Schlitz and The Gambler earlier. I implore people, I'm almost at the point of begging you to go out there. I'm talking to our audience and find the version of this song by Gretchen, please. It's just a different feeling. You're going to pull more from it. Like you did with The Gambler, right? I think it makes people listen to the song more.
Well, it does. I think when you hear the song, I think that's why people love hearing songwriters sing their own songs, because it does that thing that you go, oh, I can see how this song was made.
Yeah.
But
on the other side of the coin of that, the marriage between artist and song is so stinking important in music. And Martina is no doubt about it, the correct artist for this song. The voice that she puts on there, the iconicness of her vocals, and being able to go places that she goes in this song to really accentuate the pain and the different things that the child in the song is feeling. But conversely, it makes the listener feel the same thing. And I think that her vocals are what really shines. I think this song changed her career so much and allowed her vocals to shine. I think people know who Martina McBride is because of this song. Not just because of this song, but it's a major factor for that. And I talk a little bit about the marriage between song and artist, because over the course of your catalog, that's happened quite a few times for you, where you got the exact right artist for the song.
Thank goodness. I'm always grateful for that. Yeah. I've come at it. On my own records, I've covered songs occasionally. And so I've come at it from both directions. And in order to sing a song, I look at it like there's really an element of acting in being a singer, performer. You have to somehow want to inhabit the character of the song, whoever's delivering the protagonist of the song.
Believability. You have to portray that believability.
Yeah, you have to really there has to be something in you that says, I want to be in that person's shoes for 5 minutes and convey this thing to an audience. And so I get that, and I'm never offended I'm sometimes disappointed, but I'm never offended if an artist says, I just don't see myself singing that. If that's how they feel, I'm like, then you shouldn't, because you really do. And the other thing is, if you are an artist and you cover someone's song and it becomes a huge hit, you're going to have to sing
the damn thing. That's a forever thing. That's part of your set for the rest of days. Life. Yep.
And I have to say, gosh, God bless Martina. Thank God she's such a brilliant singer, because that's a hard song to sing.
Oh my gosh, yes. I can't imagine having to do it. At the end of the set, you have to do it at the end of the set every show.
He doesn't get off the stage without singing that.
Yeah.
And that's a lot. She's absolutely up to the task, but it's a hard song to sing.
Yeah. Man, I want to talk a little bit about songs being used for the wrong purposes, and I hope you'll not take offense to this question, but I think it's an important question to ask. As a songwriter, how does it make you feel when another person's misinterpretation of the lyrics kind of shows that either they didn't care enough to listen to the song, or they just never listened to the song? Because I feel like this song has been used for the wrong purposes too many times, and I think it takes away from the message of the song, doesn't it?
Well, it does. I guess I'm a little bit fatalistic about. It irritates me no end. Don't get me wrong, but I'm a little bit fatalistic about it. I think that by now, and Independence Day has been misappropriated, misused, misunderstood.
I would say maybe one of the songs that's been misused the most in music history. I would go that far.
It's all because the story is set on the 4th of July, and so for obvious reasons, people decide that it's a patriotic song. But here's the deal: at this point, the people who know what it's about know what it's about.
Yeah.
And I see this on social media all the time around the 4th of July. I mean, like, here's your reminder that Independence Day is not about,
Yeah.
it's about
It's not a
domestic.
patriotic song. Like,
So
stop.
I see that, and
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so people really know that, and the people that don't know that are willfully not knowing it.
Yeah.
They're willful. They're not in the dark. They're not just, they're on purpose
Yeah.
misinterpreting
It
it.
just,
And
man,
what are you gonna do with a knucklehead that just won't,
yeah,
won't learn?
it irritates me because it's so disrespectful to the characters in the song. And those characters in the song represent real people all the time. Like, that's
Yeah,
real situations,
yeah. But there's so much dumbness that goes. I mean, ask Bruce Springsteen how he feels about Born in the USA. It's
Not
like,
a patriotic song.
it's frustrating as
Yeah.
hell, but there's just always going to be that's always going to be there, and
Yeah.
go with God. Just go with God.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Man, before we get into our fun segments, I just want to say a couple of things that you've accomplished over your 30-year plus career in music. Recently named one of the 60 best female songwriters of all time by The Telegraph. 2014 Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame inductee, and I know that is a huge, huge deal
That was a
because
big.
you're talking. You named a couple of people that came before you that I know you look up to: Harlan Howard, Don Schlitz. Both of those guys are in there.
Yeah.
2021 Academy of Country Music Poets Award. That's a huge deal.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as you look back at all of these cool things that your creation has made happen, just as a secondary effect of you creating pearls, essentially. Do you take time to reflect about those things? Do you sit there and say, "Man, how cool is that?"
I've started to do that, Chris. When you're in it, I don't think you have time or inclination to really do much reflecting on that. But I've had, I quit doing the long haul touring that I was doing for so many years about a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Recently this spring I had a bout with throat cancer, so that'll get your attention and make you start reflecting on some things, I made myself a promise, really, when I quit the long haul tours that we were doing. I made myself a promise that I would really stop, slow down, breathe, take care of myself, all of that. And that lends itself to some reflection. And I think the latter things, like the Poets Award, for instance, that was a moment when I really let myself look back and go, wow, you did some stuff.
Yeah.
You really did some things. And I think I haven't, I just think when I was just touring so madly and constantly, I didn't really have the brain bandwidth to think about all that stuff. But I do now, and I'm so grateful, because the music business right now for young artists is so hard.
So oversaturated, yeah.
And they have to do so many things that have nothing to do with music, like, make reels and do, all this social media crap. And we were so lucky not to have to do that for so many years. I just feel, more than anything, I just feel really, really fortunate.
I love the fact that you're giving back with your workshops as well. I know that's probably a legacy thing for you as well.
The biggest surprise in my entire career is how much I love teaching. It's
Which
so
is interesting for a solo writer, right? Like,
well, I think it's because I feel so protective towards my students. I want to just put my arms around them and tell them, don't you let anybody hurt you.
Yeah.
I mean, I love it. And, teaching, I try to turn light bulbs on. I I don't look at it really like you can't teach somebody to write a song, but if they have the inclination to write a song, you can turn a lot of lights on for them.
Yeah, you can
That
teach them how to write the lyrics down, right?
you can, yeah, exactly. You
Yep.
can tell them, hey, that point where you get to the end of a line and you go to the next line. There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
There's a reason for everything. So
That's right.
I do, but I really, really love it, and I love teaching.
And I'm telling you guys, as we're on this subject, GretchenPeters.com, get on there if you're interested in a workshop from the legend herself. She's always looking for students, from what I can tell from reading your website. So you guys go check that out, please. I know that's important to you.
2 workshops a year in Nashville.
Yeah. So y'all check that out. All right, we're going to do some social media crap now. Is that cool with you? Because we do have to do social media crap to create buzz. I call this by the numbers, Gretchen. You'll see why as we go. And the first one is for the number 7, which I call rapid fire. I'm going to ask you 7 rapid fire questions, and you have 2 minutes to answer these. And if you don't, something really bad happens. I don't know what that is. So everybody out there, just pretend, and you can pretend as well, Gretchen. I'm tired of coming up with bad scenarios that's going to happen. It's hard to be creative after 700 episodes. But this is called rapid fire. So here we go. What is your current song obsession?
It's an Irish. Well, it's actually a Scottish song, but it's an Irish song called where this. What is the title? This time. Oh God, I'm not going to be able to remember the name. Where the sweet wild mountain time. I think it's called Wild Mountain Time.
All right. So, what is your favorite moment from your career so far?
It might have been being on stage a couple of years ago. My best friends, Susie Boggess and Matresa Berg, and I opened for the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, and Emmylou Harris was another one of their guests. And at the very end, we were all on stage, and Emmy sang 2 More Bottles of Wine, and Matresa and Susie and I were singing, harmonies. And
wow.
I think that I levitated. It was just, because Emmy.
I'd have lost my mind, and I wasn't you. Like, if I was there, I'd have lost my mind. I'm a huge Matresa Berg fan as well. I'm sure, golly, man. Someday, I know she doesn't do interviews very often. Someday, I'm going to convince her. Hopefully, we can make that happen. Matresa, please. Anyway, next one. What is something people don't know about Gretchen Peters?
I sat on Walter Cronkite's lap when I was a little girl.
All right.
I worked at CBS, and
let's go. That's so funny. All right, now we can all picture that now. All right, so your friends sucker you into Friday night karaoke. What's your first song?
God, that's a tough one. It's definitely not one of mine. Gosh, I think maybe it might be. Boy, I don't know. Bring It On Home to Me, maybe.
Oh, great song, Miranda Lambert, right?
Yeah.
I think.
No. This is the old blues song.
Like Sam Cooke, I think did that one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Man, there you go. The Bring It On Home by Miranda was written by Heather Little, who is a very good songwriter. Also wrote Gunpowder and Lead. Anyway, rapid fire. So in all of history, you can be a fly on the wall in. Where would it be?
Oh my God. Well, I could go dark, but I don't know. Honestly, I would want to be a fly on the wall in the Algonquin room when Dorothy Parker was holding court I just would want to see that.
That would be cool. What is one song you wish you wrote?
Good Old Boys Like Me.
Love it. Last one
one of the greats.
Last one for rapid fire. What's the biggest lesson you've learned directly from music?
Be here now. Be here now. Don't overthink. Stop thinking.
Yeah. Very cool. All right. So for the number 6, we have a segment called It's Not My Fault. I have to tell you why we call it It's Not My Fault. Over time, 10 years and over 700 episodes of this show, we have compiled a list of viewer questions. And so I have dozens of questions here. And then before each episode, I random number generate 6 of these questions. So it's not my fault, Gretchen, okay? Whatever comes out of this is not my fault. That's why we call it that. All right, number 1, how long do you wait after finishing your food before going back for seconds?
However long it takes to get to the seconds. I mean, why wait? What's the point?
Just eat at the stove, y'all.
Good point.
Number 2, what's your favorite season?
Oh, God. Everybody says fall, but fall.
Yeah. All right, number 3, do you believe in Bigfoot?
No,
right.
I don't.
We've never had anybody who has been on the record about believing in Bigfoot on the show. Not yet, not one time. All right, on number 4, what is your go-to pizza order?
Oh, it's Italian sausage, extra basil, and mushrooms.
All right, number 5, what was your most awkward moment on stage?
Oh, God. Oh, my God. Do I have to? I had a brand new pair of cowboy boots. This is back when I was playing bars in Colorado. And I had a brand new pair of cowboy boots, and the stage was very low. And there was a step, you know, when we were done with our set, taking a break, you could just step off the stage onto the dance floor and walk off, you know, which is what I did after our first set. And I caught the heel on this brand new pair of cowboy boots, and the dance floor, I guess, had just been waxed or something, and just went flying across the dance floor.
Oh my God.
Like, it was like literally hit the last note of the last song, walked off stage, hit that dance floor, and went on my ass.
And she's still traumatized from it 30 years later.
Totally traumatized.
All right, last
what
one.
are you going to do but get up and take a bow after
Yeah. And you probably got some applause for it too, I'm sure.
I don't remember.
Last one for It's Not My Fault. If you were a crayon, Gretchen, what color would you be and why?
I think red. Red is the most, I don't know. Red's the primary. Red is like the life force. It's like it's the color of blood.
Yeah.
It's the color of loyalty. It's red.
Okay. All right, next one for By the Numbers is for the number 5. I love this one. It's called Top 5. What are your top 5 favorite self-written or co-written songs?
Oh, God. Okay. The Matador.
Oh, man.
5 minutes. On a Bus to St. Cloud. And this is where it gets hard after those 3. The Boy from Rye. And probably Independence Day.
So I got to tell you guys out there is a record called The Essential Gretchen Peters. And I think there's like 15 songs or so on this record. And there should be 60 songs on this record. Because otherwise it's false advertisement, to be fair. Honestly.
Thank you.
Just unbelievable record. It's so good. I love that you chose the Matador. Because that's kind of a male character when you listen to that song.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And,
it's an archetype. It's a, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that is, if I had to choose maybe my best written song or the song where I got as closer to my target than maybe any other.
Yeah.
You never totally get there, but I feel like that I got pretty damn close. With that.
And as far as 5 minutes goes, I challenge people to put that song on, close your eyes, and not put yourself outside that diner. I mean, what a visual song, man. Anyway, on to the next. By the Numbers for the number 4 is called Mount Rushmore. Who is on your Mount Rushmore of best songwriters ever?
Mickey Newberry, Bob Dylan, Leonard Cohen, for sure. Oh, I'm having a real hard time with the 4th one because I'm torn. But I'd have to say Joni Mitchell.
Okay. Very good, man. All right, next one's for the number 3 is my favorite segment every week. It's called Impactful. I love when people give people flowers that had a hand in making them who they are, and that's what this is about. Can you tell us 3 people that impacted your life in some way? It doesn't have to be music related unless you want it to be. And then tell us the biggest thing you learned from each of those folks.
Oh, I love this question so much. My stepmother, who was only married to my father for 10 years, but I had a lifelong relationship with her from the age of 8 years old on till she passed away a couple of years ago. And the thing that I got from her, I think that I value the most was I called her my intellectual mother. She always wanted to know what I was thinking. She was interested in my mind. She was always asking me what I thought about things, even when I was at an age where nobody asks a little kid what they think. I would go to a museum with her and she would say, "Why do you like that painting? Tell me why." And she gave me the gift of valuing my own opinions, which was hugely important, and listening to me,
Man,
wanting to know.
She might be the reason why you chose the "I Belong Here" voice in Nashville, right?
Absolutely. She was, yeah, absolutely. She's definitely one of them. I would say the second one, I would choose my mom for very different reasons, but my mom saw this desire in me, and like I said, she enabled me. If I wanted to go see a band and I couldn't get into the place, which most of the time, I couldn't, she would take me. She took me to bars when I was, 13 years old to hear bands. She knew that this was hugely important to me, and she just did everything she could to nurture it. And that was just a huge thing. And then I would say the third person would be my husband, Barry, who we had parallel, he was in Nashville. I met him in Nashville, actually, in 1990. And we had, he was a session musician and he was on the road with Waylon for a period of time. But Barry and I had a long touring career together, both before we were together and then while we were together. And he kind of early on saw that I was, I'd released a record. It hadn't done well over here in the States. I had a career in the UK, but not really here. And he just kind of saw me for who I really was, and said early on to me, you just need to be playing. You just need to be out there. However it happens, however it works, whatever that looks like, you need to be out there, because that's who you are and that's what you do. And there were so many people at the time in Nashville, especially, telling me, why don't you just stay home and collect checks in the mailbox? What do you care? Why do you want to, and I think Barry really saw who I really was and what.
You literally just described the opposite of "you don't even know who I am."
Yeah, well, we won't go there. There's a reason for that. There's a reason I wrote that before Barry.
I understand.
Yeah, but he really, I think in some way I'm saying about all 3 of these people the same thing, which is they saw me. I felt really, really seen.
Validated. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
Awesome stuff. What are the 2 things you're most grateful for?
My own groundedness, my own centeredness. I'm very grateful for that. And I think I'm very, very grateful to the Nashville community, the broader Nashville community, but especially my circle of friends there, who have become more and more and more and more and more important to me as time has gone on. I'm talking about people like Susie and Matresa and Jeff Hanna from the Dirt Band, and my dear friend, my songwriter circle and my musician circle of friends, because we've just all been through the trenches together. And I'm the older I get, the more.
Yeah, mortality will. I feel like mortality makes you see the things around you more clearly, right?
Absolutely, no question.
Yeah. All right, last segment for By the Numbers is for the number one. It's called One Artist. Who is one artist you wish the whole world knew about?
Well, a lot of the world knows them, but more of the world should. There's a husband and wife duo that I absolutely think are brilliant called Over the Rhine. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people know them. They have a big fan base, but I think they should be freaking rock stars. They are just everything. They tick every box: the songwriting, the singing, the musicality, the intelligence, the lyrics, all of it. I just go out and listen to all the Over the Rhine records you can find.
Awesome stuff. All right, one more segment, last one, and this is such a self-reflective question. The segment is called "Who Do You Think You Are?" So who is Gretchen Peters?
Oh.
I told you.
Yeah. Does everybody have that reaction?
A lot of them, yes.
I'm kind of a product. I'm a Heinz 57 mutt, really, is what I am. I'm a product of so many weird, disparate things. I'm a product of the suburbs of New York, but I'm also a product of the 70s in Boulder, and I'm also a product of Nashville, and I'm kind of a weird, mixture. But I've always really embraced the high and low of things. I mean, I really value that I got a really good education, and that my parents, stimulated my mind and stuff. But man, I like a good meat and three and a honky tonk and a beer. And I embrace the high and the low. I don't like the middle very much, but I really
love the middle sucks, bro. It totally sucks. Yeah. Man, Gretchen Peters here on the show for the first time. I would absolutely love to chat with you again in the future.
It's been so much fun. Thank you.
I think I've only touched on like 25% of my notes here, so I'm gonna reach out again next year if that's okay with you, and maybe set this up again. That'd be great. Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna call the episode Gretchen Peters Being of Service to the Song. I think you said that earlier in the episode. I think that fits very well, if that's okay with you.
I love it.
Okay. It's GretchenPeters.com, y'all. Please go check out the website. You can sign up for the workshops there. All of her music is there. I think there's like 14 albums over the course of your career that are still in print. You can still get them, guys. And when I say you can still get them, I mean and hold them in your hand, not stream them. You can literally get them, and it'll put gas in Gretchen's tank somehow, right? So please, y'all check that out. And Gretchen, I cannot thank you enough for spending this time with us today. It was such a cool conversation.
It was really fun. I had a great time. Thank you so much, Chris.
Hey, this is Marla Cannon Goodman, and thank you for tuning in to the Boston Chris Show.
It's time for the Boston Chris Show.